I think you'd be more successful with your exercise routine if you had someone to cheer you on, coach you, and support you. Look at this research article. And I just want you to know, a lack of support has been found to be a barrier to physical activity and exercise among middle-aged and older postmenopausal women. So this study was supposed to be about vasomotor symptoms being reduced by resistance training, but really there's so much more. And what I love about this study is that hot flashes were the trigger, the catalyst for change for these women, because they couldn't take it one more second. And so that trigger made them take part of this intervention. And they did a hopes of symptom relief with these exercises. And then because they found other enjoyment, there was an evolving motivation as the driving force for change. And I think this is just the sweetest research article. So they found that the symptoms acted as a motivational trigger for women to initiate resistance training. Now, this was done in postmenopausal females who were low active, who were not already exercising. And the motivation to exercise changed during the intervention from a wish to wanting to get rid of those vasomotor symptoms to something that the women did for enjoyment and well-being in general. And in their little study, they found that vasomotor symptoms were decreased by almost 50% among women randomized to the intervention group. And they only did 15 weeks because it did show that community also mattered to these women's exercises. The women felt accountable to their physiotherapist because someone checked in on them and had expectations and motivated them. And if they missed a training session, the physio would notice it. And I do this for my patients. So the women stated that to succeed in exercise, they had to incorporate their exercise into their everyday life, and they had to particularly make it a priority, and they had to schedule it. And sometimes the women found that they scheduled it before work, or they left a little early from work to go home and exercise. The women also saw it as a chance for them to focus on themselves. People want to know about their technique. People are very worried if they're doing it wrong. The physiotherapist gave them security and encouraged them, and they felt confident and like they knew what they were doing. And then when some of these women went to the gym, then they started to recognize people and befriend them, and it became a social encounter. And this physical therapist that they saw to meet with the physiotherapist gave them a feeling of being important and validated. And this makes me want to cry because women just want to be seen. They want to know that they're doing the right thing. They want someone to help them. Can't. So during the course of the study, women started to feel good from the exercise. They started to feel the physical effects of resistance training, and they felt stronger and had more energy. And they started to notice that their body composition was changing and clothes were fitting differently. The women felt proud to exercise, and at the end of the intervention, at the end of the 15 weeks, they were like, oh, I'm someone who exercises. And they started to reshape their identity and started to see themselves as somebody different as opposed to being just sedentary. And then they started to enjoy the training. Although the original thing that got these women into the study is the vasomotor symptoms, but like they started to have hope and it started to have change, and then they started to exercise regularly. Now let's see what happens at 1 year. At 1 year follow-up, most of the participants, they no longer performed the resistance training like the original intervention. A few still followed the same program, and almost half of the women did muscle strengthening activity. That tracks, 100% tracks, because nobody was following them anymore and stalking them, so they fell off the wagon. And one of my favorite sentences of this whole article is several women described the resistance training as a chance to focus on themselves instead of others, and they did not want to let themselves down. And as we know, in previous studies, women have multiple roles and responsibilities from work to their house to childcare and their partner, and these are barriers to exercise, especially with young women and middle-aged women, because they have to prioritize the needs of others. And when these women were no longer motivated by accountability and no longer supported by the physiotherapist, they started to perceive barriers such as competing demands and prioritizing others rather than themselves. But this is why I do what I do as a physical therapist, because I see this in my everyday patients. Someone caring about them and pushing them makes the difference in their life, because they know that someone's watching and they're going to show up for that other person, and eventually they'll show up for themselves.